Good afternoon from London. It's a bit of a dismal afternoon here in London, but never mind, it will clear up soon. And hello to all dear comrades, friends, and supporters from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche idea, chairman of the Korean Friendship Association of the UK, and official delegate of KFA for the UK, and of course the owner of this very self-same channel, Songam 007, the militant voice of Juche and Songam in the UK, defending people's Korea with no ifs or buts. And firstly, happy Day of the Sun to all viewers, friends, comrades, and supporters. This is, of course, April 15th, the 113th anniversary of the birth of the great leader, President Kim Il-sung, which is celebrated by the Korean people and by world progressives and Juche dear followers as the Day of the Sun. So it is appropriate and fitting for me to give this presentation that will pay tribute to President Kim Il-sung and the great work he did for people's Korea and indeed for world socialism and the world revolution. Once a famous British economist, Professor Joan V. Robinson of Cambridge University, visited the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, in 1964. When she came back, she wrote an article in the famous socialist, in fact, it was a US socialist magazine, Monthly Review. The article was titled The Korean Miracle, and it was actually about the DPRK and what she'd seen there. Later, of course, the mainstream media and the bourgeoisie and reactionaries actually appropriated this term and used it to describe the fake economic growth in the neo-colony of fascist South Korea. Anyway, Joan Robinson, describing the DPRK Monthly Review, wrote that, and I quote, 11 years ago in Pyongyang, there was not one stone standing upon another. They reckon that one bomb of a ton or more was dropped per head of population. Now, a modern city of 1 million inhabitants stands on two sides of the wide river with broad tree-lined streets of 5-story blocks, public buildings, a stadium, theatres, one underground surviving from the war, and a super deluxe hotel. The industrial sector comprises a number of up-to-date textile mills and a textile machinery plants. The wide sweep of the river and the little tree-clad hills preserved as parks provide agreeable vistas. There are some patches of small grey and white houses hastily built from the rubble, but even there the lanes are clean and light and water are laid on. A city without slums. End of quotation from Professor Joan V. Robinson. And I sort of could add there that all this was actually 61 years ago. I mean, obviously Pyongyang has changed many times over since then. And of course, it was only 11 years after the immense devastation and destruction caused by the US imperialists during the Fatherland Liberation War. Indeed, the achievements of the DPRK are truly miraculous. But what is the driving force behind them? What is the inspiration for them? Who was able to lead the Korean people to work such miracles in such short space of time? The answer was that it was President Kim Il-sung, whose birth anniversary we are marking today. President Kim Il-sung was born into a humble peasant family during the time of Japanese colonialism, but he became a brilliant and ever victorious iron-willed, brilliant guerrilla commander and a benevolent liberator who vanquished the samurais who'd stolen the independence of Korea. President Kim Il-sung led the struggle for independence from an early age, forming the Down with Imperialism Union in 1926 and later the anti-Japanese People's Guerrilla Army on the 25th of April 1932. I think it's also worth pointing out that he formed the Association for the Restoration of the Fatherland and the Korean National Liberation Union. After liberation from Japanese imperialist rule, President Kim Il-sung did not rest, but set about the work of building a new people's Korea, a new democratic Korea on the ruins of Japanese colonialism. It was not a copy of another country, nor a colony or a dependency of another country, but a new state based on the Juche idea that President Kim Il-sung himself had authored in the days of the anti-Japanese war. The Juche idea was not created in a library or someone's front room, but on the fiery battlefields of the anti-Japanese armed struggle. President Kim Il-sung applied the Juche idea in depth to the questions of building a new state. President Kim Il-sung laid down independent and original policies based on the Juche idea, such as building an independent national economy. And this line was applied right from the start. In 1947, President Kim Il-sung said, and I quote, "For complete national independence and sovereignty and for national prosperity and development, one must build an independent national economy and thus firmly ensure economic independence." End of quotation. Earlier, in 1945, President Kim Il-sung had laid the foundation for an independent Juche-based munitions industry at Pyeongchang, which is now preserved as a revolutionary site, which I visited in April 2016. It was here that the new Juche Korea, under the leadership of the great leader President Kim Il-sung, established its munitions industry. At first, some great power chauvinists in a certain country told Korea that they should not establish their own armed forces nor have their own munitions industry. President Kim Il-sung, however, insisted that the DPRK should not simply assemble weapons made by another country, but produce its own weapons. The idea, of course, goes right back to the days of the anti-Japanese armed struggle, when the Korean guerrillas made the Yonggil bomb. It was hoped at the time that the USSR would supply a hand grenade factory, but for whatever reasons, this never materialized. This firmly convinced President Kim Il-sung of the need for both an independent munitions industry and an independent national economy. Self-sufficiency in economy and self-reliance in national defense are indeed the twin pillars of Juche Korea. In the late 1950s, when the DPRK was recovering from the severe destruction caused by the US imperialists during the Fatherland Liberation War, the modern revisionist and great power chauvinists tried to put pressure on the DPRK to join the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, which was a Soviet-led and Soviet-dominated body for the socialist bloc. But the DPRK refused to do so, maintaining the line of independence, the line of Juche that President Kim Il-sung had set down. He defined the independent national economy as follows. Building an independent national economy means building a diversified economy, equipping it with up-to-date technology and creating our own solid basis of raw materials, thereby building up an all-embracing economic system in which every branch is structurally interrelated so as to provide domestically most of the products of heavy and light industry and the agricultural produce needed to make the country wealthy and powerful and improve the people's living condition. End of quotation. The Soviet big power chauvinists and the modern revisionists tried to subordinate the DPRK economy to their own, but President Kim Il-sung was having none of it. He rejected it. Instead, he adhered to the line of economic independence. The DPRK did not join the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance. The big power chauvinists and revisionists tried to induce the DPRK to join by offering electricity from the Lake Baikal power station. At the time, President Kim Il-sung told them, "We will not use electricity generated by the power station if we become dependent on electricity from you, and then you fail to supply it. We would suffer greatly. If we have funds for transmission cables from the power station to our country, it would be more effective for us to use these funds to build another hydroelectric power station in our country. It has become more clear today that our decision to build socialism by our own efforts on the principle of self-reliance and not enter the CMEA was quite correct." End of quotation. President Kim Il-sung showed truly superhuman energy in guiding the building of Juche-based socialism in people's Korea. He worked day and night to guide the construction of socialism in Korea, even worked on holidays, at weekends, and on his birthday. President Kim Il-sung, throughout his life, had visited 20,000 different units in the DPRK, travelling more than 578,000 kilometers, which is the equivalent of traveling around the Earth many times. The number of days from President Kim Il-sung's field guidance totaled 8,650 from the period after Korea's liberation in 1945 to the end of his life in 1994. This works out at 176 days per year, an incredible figure. Therefore, on April 15th, today, let us pay tribute to President Kim Il-sung, the leader, the great leader, who created miracles in building socialism. Glory to the eternal memory of the great leader, President Kim Il-sung. Long live the 113th anniversary of the birth of the great leader, President Kim Il-sung. Long live Juche, long live self-reliance, long live People's Korea, long live the Great Workers' Party of Korea, long live respected Marshal Kim Jong-un. Thank you very much for your attention today and for watching the video. If you're not already a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button and please share content from the channel and tell as many people as possible about it. It's important to support us by joining our events. You can actually learn quite a lot at them. We've got a reading session in 2 days' time, and we've also got the film nights on the 28th of April, and I'm going to have another live stream on that Friday night, which I'm going to be talking about a couple of things, including my latest book, Anti-Revisionist Fortress of Juche. And by the way, we do have an active publications program. It's not just my books, it's some collectively written books. It's some that have been written by other authors in our organisation. There's going to be a link in the description. Please buy the books in great numbers and tell everybody about it. And you can also support us by donating to KFA UK, but we're going to be changing our bank account very soon because Lloyd's imposed charges on our account. Very bad and discriminatory move. And you can also donate to myself. Anyway, again, I wish you all a very happy day of the sun and hope to see you all again soon. Goodbye.